Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Our current session is about age as a correlate in sociolinguistics. Well, my dear students, I hope and expect that by the end of this session, you would be able to understand the significance of age as a social correlate, and you would be able to understand, how in different sociolinguistic researches this plays a significant role. Well, if we look at different global categories that are employed for the kind of investigation of language variations, I would say probably age is that one particular factor or that one particular correlate that is taken into consideration very rarely. It is the least considered, I would say, correlate or variable in sociolinguistic research. If we compare it with other correlates or with other variables, for example, with gender, with ethnicity, with social class, etc., age then is something that is not taken into consideration in that way. And generally, it is thought that it is not age, it is the other factors that create our identities. However, how age performs its role in creating certain social identities and thus in turn linguistic identities, this is a significant, I would say, area that sociolinguistics needs to focus more on. When it comes to human beings, I would say age is a fundamental dimension of our social and personal identities. We have different kinds of identities as we grow through different stages of life. And in fact, age factor is not only related to language, it relates to our other aspects of social life as well. Legislatively speaking, age will influence what we can do and cannot do, what we should do and what we should not do, being members of a social setup or being members of a community. So, for example, our age determines whether we can vote or not, whether we can drive or not, whether we can marry or not, what is the time to go to school or to work, and whether we can do it or not at a certain stage. Then, even when it comes to work, we retire at a certain age, which means beyond that we cannot do that, etc. So, not only all these aspects of our life, but also it affects the kind of foods we eat, the kind of clothing that we wear, the kind of places we go to, the way we walk, the way we talk as well. So, for human beings, age is something far more than what we may call a number. And it is actually more like a movement through different stages or through different phases of the life of a human being. It is more like, taking you through the whole trajectory of, human existence. If we just make a kind of a rough estimate, actually, it is only through the voice of somebody. If we cannot see somebody, we just listen to the voice, we can actually from the linguistic behavior, the way words are spoken and the tone and the pitch and the intonation, etc., combined together, they give us some idea into the age of the person as well. It suggests that we are responsive to cues from phonetic and phonological features, grammatical structures, and lexical items that we use as human beings at different stages of our lives that tell us about our age. If we talk of general, division of human age categories, I would say there are main 4 stages. That is infancy and childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and then old age. And in terms of language use and linguistic choices, each of these stages has characteristic behavior patterns that sociolinguists have studied attached to each of these stages of human life. As far as acquisition of language is concerned, the acquisition of language, of communicative competence, etc., there has been a lot of studies, and in sociolinguistics there has been a lot of inquiry into the processes of language acquisition and then second language acquisition in childhood of the age of infancy and the early years of life of a human being. When it comes to sociolinguistic competence, that is the ability to use linguistic competence in the social context, it is less well understood at this stage. And as children, shift from infancy and, from childhood to adolescence, this sociolinguistic competence develops more, which means they start learning what is socially appropriate or inappropriate to use and how to use when it comes to, linguistic choices. Studies that are made with reference to age and language acquisition, they have shown that at different time points in human life and during different stages of human life, the degree of language acquisition and the nature of language acquisition, it varies. For example, Penny's work in 1980 in King of Prussia, Philadelphia revealed children moving into the area before the age of 8 or 9 were able to acquire certain local vowel shifts. So, if a child is moved from one area to the other and gets settled in that area, acquiring the vowel sounds as they are being used there would be easier for the child till the age of 8 and 9, but beyond that, it would be comparatively difficult. In terms of language development in children, Labor of 1972 suggests that acquisition of the local dialect takes place from the age of 4 to 13, when speech patterns are being dominated by the pre-adolescent groups. When you pass this stage, then, acquiring these patterns, it becomes comparatively more difficult, and in old age, it is almost impossible. Moving from this stage to the second, that is the adolescent stage, this is very interesting that this is perhaps the most researched stage of life when it comes to sociolinguistic explorations of the use of language. I would here refer to Eckert 1998's work. According to Eckert, adolescents lead the entire age spectrum in sound change and in the general use of vernacular variables, and this lead is attributed to adolescents' engagement in constructing identities in opposition to or at least independently of their elders. So, the kind of activities they are involved in, this is considered to be, adolescence is considered to be a very crucial age where, there is a remarkable shift from childhood to adulthood. This is a transition period, and in this period, adolescence period, these young children are very much, conscious about their identities, their personal identities, their linguistic identities, their group identities, and they want to mark themselves as different from their elders. And this is what Eckert has pointed out, that a lot of changes occur, in their pronunciation and in their speech because of this conscious, involvement of activities where they want to be different from their elders. This leads to the third stage of adulthood that covers the gulf between, adolescence and old age. Again, this is very interesting that when it comes to research on this, though a lot of work has been done on adolescence in sociolinguistics, we find very little work that is done on or that is carried out on adulthood. This actually is a time that is shaped by the ideas of, career beginnings and by the ideas of parenthood and, a lot of other factors that bring a change in the life of a human being. So, sociolinguistically, these are important areas that need to be explored. When it comes to the last stage, that is old age, in terms of old age, it is often approached from a clinical perspective. All the sociolinguistic research that we find with reference to this age bracket as a social correlate, that is mostly based on a kind of clinical perspectives for more like treatments of problems in producing certain sounds, etc., or loss of hearing, etc. So, these kind of things are explored, but taking it as an independent variable, using it for sociolinguistic research, otherwise in terms of linguistic choices, we do not find much research as such. And as I have said, there is very little work that is conducted in this area. So, the speaker's age-related place in the society is very complex, and the linguistic life course that one has as one moves from one part of or one stage of life to the other, and as one experiences different parts of social life, different stages of social life as well, this age plays an important role in choosing the kind of language people speak, how do they shift from one language to the other, what are the lexical choices that they use, what are the frequencies of certain other variables that are determined through age. However, in sociolinguistics, this variable of age needs to be further explored.